Welcome to Behind the Book. It's time now for Behind the Book, hosted by Tess Thompson and Karen McQuestion, two authors with a passion for books, no filters, and limitless curiosity. Join them now to find out the real story behind your favorite books and authors. And now, Behind the Book.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Book. I'm here with Karen McQuestion, my amazing co-host. Karen, how are you?
Amazing, as always.
Yes, you are. That's right.
And actually, I wanted to say something about you. You're pretty awesome yourself. Your new book, your Italian translation, it's killing it over in Italy.
Yeah, I just looked and it was number 20 in the Kindle store, which is amazing. There's, fewer books over there, so it's easier to get noticed, but it's been really neat. And this woman, Isabel Nanny is her name, and she is the translator, but she also does a lot of other things, like coordinates with bloggers, and, she just really knows how to do it. And so I think that's one reason they're doing so well. It's both Italy and France. It's been kind of amazing. As we talked about before, it is an investment to get them translated, and it would, it takes a while to recoup that. But I definitely think it's worth it, especially if you do it the right way, which is not totally easily, because it is hard to find the translators, and then there's the money and blah, blah. But anyway, thank you. Yeah, it's been fun.
I did some books in German, and for our listeners who aren't aware of this, most of the time you sell to a publisher in that country and they take care of everything and you get a payment up front. But for us, what we did was we took our books and hired a translator. And in my case, and I think in your case too, after the translator's work is done, she hired a proofreader to go over it. And then I did the formatting. The cover designer created new covers with the translated cover. Same book, but more readers and more revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was really inspired after going to RAM, not last year, but the year before. And it was Charlotte Bird, who writes in the romance genre. She went through kind of what she had done with her books and how, the translations had really taken her to another income level. So that's what inspired me to do it. It's a huge undertaking when you have a lot of books. It's like, okay, which ones do I do? What, that whole thing.
I remember my German translator saying, I had a 4-book series, like, why don't you just wait and see how the first book does? And I was like, no, we have to get all of in for a penny, in for a pound, as they used to say in the 1800s. I don't know why I just said that, but I just felt like I made the commitment to do it. And then I just prayed and prayed that I would recoup the cost, which I did. But you don't know going in necessarily that that's how it's going to go. For you, it's gone really well.
Yeah, no, it's been good. What's going on with you? Anything interesting?
Well, it's funny. Our guest today, Elizabeth Mackey, is in Canada, and she was talking about fish and salmon in particular. And I thought that was hilarious because have you heard about Stephen King's recipe for salmon that he put on Twitter? Okay, he put this recipe on Twitter. It caused quite the outrage. You buy a piece of fresh salmon, and apparently you put some olive oil on it. And he didn't say to season it, but I'm guessing you could. You wrap it in wet paper towel, and you microwave it for 3 minutes. And that's the entire recipe. So people are like, you microwave fish, that's a sin against food. And then he came on afterwards and said, don't go slagging on my recipe until you try it, which I'm not familiar with the word slagging. Is that
me either? I've never heard that word.
I don't know. So that was interesting because I love it when people use, different vocabulary. And then I was, of course, just randomly on the internet, and I found some guy who decided to try it. Like, I tried Stephen King's recipe, and these were the results. And he said it was delicious. He actually seasoned it, and he said it was flaky and delicious. So this morning, I was up early, and I told Greg, I'm going to run to the store quick before I start my workday. We needed a couple things, and they had fresh salmon. And this was just at the Pick and Save. And I was like, oh, we haven't had this in a long time. I'm going to try the Stephen King thing. Okay.
So we'll expect a full report.
Well, unfortunately, I won't have a full report because I told Greg my plan. Now,
Oh no.
I have to back up and say Greg's the cook in the family. I cook when I have to. I don't love it. I'm not into seasoning. I just don't really enjoy it. So as time has gone on, he has taken on more of the cooking duties to the happiness of everyone in the household. Um, but he was like, "You're going to do what?" And I was like, "I thought I'd try Stephen King's. You wrap it in a wet paper towel, and you put it on a plate, and you microwave it for 3 minutes." And he was like, "I'll be home in time to cook the salmon." I said,
Well, I think to, certain people who maybe are better cooks than you and me, that it just is like blasphemy. Like, how
"Oh,
could you like do
he
that to
was
fish, right?
horrified."
Like this fresh fish. Yeah. I was going to say, I think both my current husband and my ex-husband would be in that camp as well. Like, especially out here, we get the Copper River. Have you ever heard of that? That's like
No.
it's out of Alaska, and it's like really delicious and everything. And it's a big thing when the salmon is in the stores, and it's super expensive, which is you really only want to have it once a year because
And
it's
when
so
you do, you don't microwave it, right?
exactly. Yeah. When it's $20 a pound or whatever it is.
Speaking of
Anyway,
from Canada, I wanted to talk to you because you posted on Facebook a picture of a bear
yes.
eating out of your compost bin. And I was
Yes.
like, is she on vacation somewhere, like in the North Woods? And no, it
No.
was in your Seattle suburb.
Yeah,
What?
in a suburb, and we have quite a few critters that live around us. There's bears. We have a bobcat that I ran into one day on my walk. I was like, oh my
Oh,
god,
that had to be
uh, it was a
scary.
little scary, yeah. But anyway, this bear was up early. I was still in bed. Cliff got it on video. Oh, and then we have this camera in the back, so we were able to see the whole thing. He came up. He kind of sniffed around, and then he knocked it over. It was like it's a trash bin essentially, but it has all our compost in it. Then just went to town, and we were speaking of it in the hot tub last night, trying to decide what he or she was doing because he took big parts of the compost and took it off into the forest, because we kind of got a bank of trees or whatever. And so then we started thinking maybe there were cubs down there, and that she
Oh.
was bringing him to the baby cubs. So then we were like, okay, well, we got to be careful because
Yeah, this time of year, it's a good
yeah,
possibility.
and mama bears with cubs is not a good thing.
So, is this something that your neighbors would not be surprised to hear? Or is
Right.
this, oh, I was
Yeah.
just like, I was envious. I felt like you lived in a much cooler part of the United States. And now I'm like, not so envious. Your cost of living is up there. You've got
And we have
bears.
bears.
You have bears. Okay, I'll just visit sometime on vacation.
Yeah, well, it's this neighborhood in particular, actually the one I used to live in too. A lot of bears. Like people will just see them in their yard all the time. And one day I was driving back from the gym, and one was in like the kind of the front part of our neighborhood. And so I kind of went around the corner, and I saw the bear. I was like, oh, and this woman was out for a walk, and I actually stopped, and I was like, there's a bear around the corner. And she was like, okay, I think I won't walk that direction.
Wow. You could
Yeah.
have saved her life.
Yeah, I don't know if these are the kind of bears that would try to eat you, but I don't want to take the chance.
In my
But
imagination, all of them are the kind that would eat you.
exactly. Yeah, well, and the one that was in our yard yesterday, Cliff was in our little powder room area, which has a window, and so he could look right, he saw right out there. Well, the bear, and he was tapping on the window to try to get it to run away because, compost was all over the yard. And the bear just like thought that was curious and got really close. And so the
Oh, I saw that
picture,
picture.
yeah,
The
it's
bear's
like that.
nose is right up against the glass.
Yeah, and Cliff had the window open, and he's like, using the handle, like close it. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that would have completely freaked me out. Life in the woods here in Seattle, Washington. Yeah. Well, speaking of the woods, we have Elizabeth Mackey on today. She is my cover designer, and yours too, at least for
Done
some
some
of your
for
books.
me,
Yeah.
and she's just wonderful at what she does and interesting to
Yes.
talk to too.
Yeah, and she lives in Alaska, and so she had a good bear story as well, which we won't ruin for the listeners. But anyway, all right. Well, enjoy the show, everybody.
Today we have a very special guest. Both Tess and I are really excited to talk with Elizabeth Mackey. She is a Coast Guard wife, mom, and freelance graphic designer, and has designed some of the best book covers ever. She graduated from the Art Institute of California in San Diego, earning a Bachelor's of Science degree in graphic design. She has 15 years of experience in graphic design, specializing in book cover designs. She enjoys reading, exploring the outdoors, binge watching shows, catching big fish, and living life to the fullest. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're so excited that you could take time to talk to us. We know you're really busy, and so we'll jump right in. Can you share with us how you got into graphic design and then ultimately doing book covers in particular?
Sure. I always had a love for art. I focused on it through high school. I was really into painting and drawing, and I realized it was my passion. So I moved from Arizona to San Diego, went to college, graduated, and at that point, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in the graphic design world. So I started out in advertising, and then I met my husband, and we moved to Sacramento, California, and I worked at a phone book company, and I really enjoyed it, and I did all of their covers. And then my husband got the news that we were going to be stationed in Kodiak, Alaska. And we were not supposed to move. We were supposed to stay. So it was kind of a whirlwind. So I ended up leaving my job at the phone book company, and we moved to Alaska. And I didn't work a whole lot because I had my children. Well, my mom at the time, is an author, and she wanted me to do her covers. So I designed her covers, and then it kind of just spiraled from there. She started a Facebook group with authors, and they all started reaching out to me, and I started doing their covers. And before I knew it, it was just like this full-time job doing cover design, and I absolutely loved it. It was the first time I felt like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like, I love this. Like, I didn't really ever love logo design or branding, like for product design. That just wasn't really my thing. But something about book covers I loved, because I love to read. So it was so fun getting to put this face on a story type of a thing. So now here I am, and it's pretty much my full-time job.
That is crazy. I didn't realize that about your mom. That is amazing.
She has a very well-selling series called Haunting Danielle by Bobby Holmes, which is my mom. And she is just coming out with book 30 in her series.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's like a cozy mystery series, and it's done amazingly well.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we are both curious about the process you go through from kind of start to finish. You know, the author reaches out and says, hey, it's this, this, and this. And so what do you do first? Kind of walk us through that.
So I have a little sheet that I kind of send everyone to fill out, like fill in the blanks, you know, your genre, author name, because sometimes it's different than people's real name, and a little bit about their story, character descriptions, if they have ideas. Most authors know their genre and what covers they like in their genre. So it kind of helps me get an idea of what they like. Because sometimes if I don't know, I mean, it's really hard going into it blind if I have no idea their style they like. So I kind of go from there. Some authors have very specific ideas of what images they'd like to use, which I am fine with. And then some have no idea. So I will do all the image searches and kind of come up with a plan. And I usually start with a few ideas, send those off, and then we just kind of bounce back and forth until we get a cover that they love and it fits the genre and checks all the boxes.
I have a question. I was wondering, you recently did a cover for me, and we came up with a concept, and I got 3 choices. They were all the same type of image, but they weren't the exact same image, and the colors were different, and the fonts were slightly different. And they each had a slightly different feel and slightly different look. And then I chose which one I liked the best, and you asked if I wanted any adjustments, and we went from there. But do you ever have an author pick something that surprises you? Like, you send them 3 covers. Do you always think, oh, for sure they'll pick that one?
In the beginning, I used to send all these ideas, and sometimes I would send ideas that I didn't really like, and then they would pick those. And I was like, gosh darn it, why did they pick the one I didn't even like? So now I've learned only send the ones that I like. And sometimes I'm surprised. I have a really clear vision. I can usually nail it down, and then I'm not surprised. But sometimes they pick the one that I just threw in there. You just never know.
How can authors help you create a cover that's best for their subgenre?
I think it really helps if they know their genre and they know what's selling in their genre, because that helps me, because sometimes they have no idea and they want something that doesn't fit. And I have to kind of explain, like, I don't think that will do well for you. So that can kind of be hard. So if they do a little bit of research, sometimes I know it's a little work on their end, but it helps going into the process if they know what to expect.
Yeah, because you can have a great cover, but if it doesn't broadcast what the book is about or the genre, it doesn't do you any favors in the marketplace.
And I think sometimes some authors get stuck on too many of the details that maybe aren't important on the cover. And so I have to kind of explain that we're trying to just get somebody to look at it really quick. And it's not, maybe all the tiny details won't match up to your story perfectly, but as long as it gets their attention, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake a lot of newer authors make. I mean, I remember thinking that when my first couple books, like, well, does it really represent the exact book? It's like, it actually doesn't matter. But, but not everybody realizes that at first. So, one thing that I have found, and you do all my covers, and I'm always bragging about you to other people, but what I love about you, and that's different from other people I've worked with, is that you do seem to have a really good idea of the marketplace. And you do all kinds of different subgenres. So it's not like you just focus on sweet romance or something. First of all, I love that. And second of all, is that just like instinct, or have you developed that over time? How do you do that so well?
Well, I think it just kind of happens naturally as I'm working I work with so many different clients each month in so many different genres that I kind of just get a glimpse at each one, and they're always slightly changing. And it just kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, just kind of a natural thing. I will go on Amazon and see what's selling, or if we are ever off of this island, I will go into a bookstore and spend a few hours and see what's out there, just to kind of get an idea. And I mean, every time we even go to Walmart, I always look at the book section. We don't have a lot of shops here, but I do try to stay current and see what's selling, so I have better ideas.
Do you have a favorite kind of cover that you like? Like, is something that you're like, oh, this is the best project ever?
Sometimes I get ones where I'm like, oh, this will be fun, and I want to just bump this to the top of my list. And I do like cozy covers. I think are really fun because that gives me a lot of freedom just to do fun things. And even if it's a mystery or romantic comedy or, whatever the subgenre is, it's kind of fun to do with illustrations because there's just a little bit more freedom there.
And how does that work for the illustrated covers? Those are also stock images?
A lot of times, yes. Sometimes I draw my own images. If I can't find something that I like or that fits my needs, I will draw them. Like I recently did a couple. It was like a romantic comedy and I needed a specific looking couple. And so I couldn't find one that I liked. So I found images and I kind of pieced together and drew my own couple to make it work. So like a lot of times I'll take stock images and I'll only use the face or the arms and I'll piece together whatever I need. Sometimes it'll be like 100 different stock images and I'm only using little pieces of each one to put together an image.
Oh, that's fascinating. So with as much as you work and your family life, do you have time to read yourself? And then when you do read, what's your preference?
So I used to read all the time. And as my kids have gotten older, it's gotten harder and I work more now than I ever have. So it definitely is hard for me now. And I'm so tired by the end of the day from working on the computer all day and then, with the kids and getting them into bed. And by the end of the night, if I read, I will fall asleep. But when I do read, Colleen Hoover is probably one of my favorite authors. I absolutely adore all of her books. So I try to read them as they come out. I've read all of my mom's books. I was her beta reader until I fell behind and she wrote too many books and I couldn't keep up. So my daughter,
You got fired.
I know, and my daughter, she's 12 and she is an avid reader. So she's my mom's new me. So she'll read the books for my mom and tell her, Grandma, you need to fix this or that. Can't keep
great.
up.
3 generations. That's awesome.
Yeah, that really is.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, you've mentioned it a little bit, but I'm curious just because I also am a working mom and, just juggling kids and your own work. How do you do it? Like, do you have any tips for the rest of us? Because you seem to do it so gracefully.
It's probably gotten easier as my kids are both in school and now my son is 9. My daughter just turned 12 last Sunday. And so they're pretty self-sufficient, but it's just, I'm very scheduled. So I get up at the same time every morning, make lunches, get them off to school, sit down. I usually try to go through emails in the morning. This year, I've really, really started taking care of my own fitness and physical health. And so I make a point to take an hour of every afternoon to work out. When the kids are at school, that's kind of like my lunch break. And then I just get right back to it. I work until they get home and I try my hardest not to work nights or weekends because I really do need that time with my family and to reset. Because when they were little, I found myself constantly working every minute I could. And so I never really got that weekend or the reset. And I struggled. And so it's been a lot easier kind of having set hours. Because I know when you're self-employed, you kind of lose that, you're just working whenever you can work. And so I think when you kind of set those hours, it helps you stay focused and then also have those breaks and kind of reset.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah.
So what would you say is the best part about being a book cover designer?
Oh, I think I love it the most because each day is different and I'm not always doing the same repetitive thing. Each project is different. It's kind of exciting to see what new things I can come up with. It's definitely not boring.
Just juggling the author personalities would keep you on your toes. Just like, yeah. All right. So you've touched on it a little bit, but can you share a little bit more about how you, like, best case scenario of collaborating with an author? What are some do not do this types of behavior that could help some of the newer authors out there?
So I will say, and this has happened a few times, I don't love when an author comes to me and has a fully mocked up design of what they want, photos, fonts, everything. I kind of feel like, why would I recreate what you've already created and love? And then it kind of takes away, I just feel like then I'm just kind of like the puppet instead of the designer, where I don't get to put any of my touches on it and it doesn't really feel like my design. So I don't love that. I don't mind them showing me some rough images and kind of like, okay, I really like my name on the bottom and I like these images and that sort of thing. That's fine. I just don't love when they come with a fully designed cover and just want me to recreate that exactly. And I've had these conversations where I tell them, if you've done this and you love this, then maybe you should use that instead of having me recreate something to the exact specifications that you've already done. So that's probably the one thing that I don't love.
Yeah. I could see how that would be irritating. I can't even imagine doing it myself because I don't understand how anybody could possibly figure that out. But that kind of your biggest pet peeve, or is there anything else you'd like to mention?
That, and it's not a huge deal, but when I do paperback covers, it's kind of nice if the blurb is done and polished and I can just paste and put that in. I've had authors, I put it in and then let's tweak this word and I'm going to rewrite it this way. And it's kind of like, it takes me time to put it in and save it and send it, so it helps if it's finished and ready to go where I can put it on the back of the cover and be done.
I think that's just a matter of being professional and courteous.
Yeah.
Because you value your time as much as we value our time.
I mean, I understand if you've missed something and it's a simple change, and that doesn't bother me at all. It's just I've had a few times where it's they're just rewriting the blurb 10 times. And now something that was simple has become, a larger project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I actually heard an interesting story that you wanted a certain kind of figure for one of your covers, and it was a military guy holding a gun, and you couldn't find the right stock image, so your husband played the part? Is that right?
He did. If you look up Russell Blake covers, you'll see the back of my husband in holding different guns.
Yeah, I mean, this really is a family business for you guys.
He thinks I'm crazy. Sometimes I'm like, can you just hold this? I just need a photo of your hand. And he's just kind of like, what? Okay.
So did you just go in the backyard and take pictures, or?
Pretty much. He has a whole bunch of guns. So it kind of came in handy that he could just use one of his guns. And then I just took his picture. And that's what I use. And he is on a whole bunch of covers, actually.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I've used my daughter on a cover once, too, when she was little, because I couldn't find the right girl and the right face. And so I did use her on one.
Well, that makes it really special, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So what other design work are you doing these days besides covers?
Probably over the last 2 years, I've kind of just tried to get away from doing anything but covers. I will do stuff like postcards for, to advertise people's books, bookmarks. Sometimes I do author logos, but I don't love doing them because I just think logos are really, really hard for some reason. It's just something that I don't have the time for, and I rather spend my time doing cover design. So I kind of focus more on that.
Do you have any dream authors that you wish you could work with?
Oh, I don't know.
Colleen Hoover, maybe?
Probably.
Yeah.
I know her sister's a book cover designer, so she probably will stick with her.
Darn it.
I'm wondering about branding because you do such a great job with that. What are some things that you definitely keep in mind when you're doing series covers?
Yeah, I'm very big on branding a series, and I like to keep the placement of the title, the author name, and the images all the same. So a lot of times we'll just change out the images, but I really feel like everything should stay consistent. And it kind of makes it easier going forward if you have an idea of, what images you'll use for each book. And I also like for authors to think ahead on if they're going to do a big series, think about your titles not being different in length because you want to think about how it's going to fit in your cover. And if you have one title that's really short and then another title that's really long, it's going to throw off the whole look of the total package in the end. When you line them all up, it's just not going to fit. And I've actually had authors go back and change their titles because they realized it wasn't working with the whole series.
That's so interesting that you bring that up because that's my husband's pet peeve. If any of my series have a name that's shorter than the rest, that's all he can see when we line them up.
And it kind of
gives like, you're so anal.
It does give me anxiety when I get an email. I'm like, that's such a long title. It's not going to fit.
So in general, do you prefer shorter titles?
I don't love long words. They don't fit very nice in a cover. So I do prefer shorter words when designing. Visually, they just look better. You can make them a little bit larger. You can take up more space. Even if they're smaller, they can still take up more space. If it's a really long word, it just kind of sticks there and it's harder to design around.
You're limited then.
Yes.
As far as the spacing goes.
Yes.
Now I want to touch on something that I know you know all about, and it's trends. Cover trends in subgenres. I had heard recently that illustrated covers are much more popular than, say, 10 years ago, and that having people on the covers is still common with romance, but not as much in other genres. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I would definitely agree. That is becoming quite the trend. Yeah, actually. It's funny because over Christmas, we went to Portland and I went into Barnes and Nobles and the amount of illustrated covers blew me away. Everybody's doing illustrated now. And I've seen a lot of clients come to me with that same hey, can we change up this cover? I noticed illustrated is really popular. I've seen it a lot more in romance. A lot of people are kind of going that route, or even just doing a limited edition cover with a illustration just to see if it sells a little bit better than a photo cover. But it is definitely becoming more popular.
Yeah, it's interesting because that is something I would never have predicted, because it used to be, I don't know, maybe this has been 5 or 10 years ago, where it was chick lit, was definitely illustrated. And so then the reader knew, oh, I know what this kind of book is. But now it seems to be romantic comedies, other, just contemporary romances. So I'll be curious to see if that trend continues.
Yeah, I will too.
Well, your mom was kind of ahead of her time, or at least you were, because aren't her covers illustrated?
They are, but hers fall into the cozy genre. So they kind of have always fit into that. But they aren't as, sometimes when you think of like cozy, you think of funnier, I guess.
Whimsical,
or,
kind of.
Whimsical. And
Yeah.
they're kind of not, they're a little bit more on the serious side, I think. Because if you look at her covers, they all have the houses with the little window, and each book cover has a different window that's lit up so you can see what's happening. And there's always like some sort of murder mystery happening in each book.
Are you running out of
That's very
windows
cool.
with 30 books?
Yes, I just did one. I just did book 31 this morning, and I'm like, I'm running out of colors because each book is also a different color. So now there's only so many colors. I've been mixing colors, so it's getting a little bit crazy.
You're like, ease up, Mom. What about young adult novels? What trends are you seeing in that genre?
I actually haven't done very many of those. So I honestly wouldn't know. That's probably the one genre that I really haven't done a whole lot of in quite a while. But I would say those are probably more images with heavier type. You don't really see a whole lot of like couples on those covers.
Or it used to be like the pensive looking girl sitting on a rock or something. You don't really see that anymore.
I think they're more heavy type and then some sort of background image. I feel like that's more popular right now.
Now, you had mentioned some of your clients redoing covers because things change. Is that something that is really common?
Yeah, it can be. Some of my authors just like to change up their covers every few years just to spice things up a little bit. And then some never change. I just really think it depends on what's selling and if their covers maybe weren't doing as great as they wanted. So they just want to kind of freshen them up. And, things do change, design changes. And so they kind of just want to stay current with what's currently selling. So we will change. I'll change them as needed.
And do you work mostly with independent authors?
Yes. I have worked with publishers. I actually work with one, which is really great. And I do a whole bunch of work with them. I will work with audio book publishers, usually just sending them files of ebooks that I've already created. But I do like to work with independent because I feel like there's no middleman, and it's kind of nice working directly with an author and what they want and what they like. And it seems to be faster too, because when you work with a publisher, it's a lot slower process. It's slower to get completed. It's slower to get paid. The whole process is just much more drawn out, where when you work with an author directly, everything is more instant, which I like.
Talk to us about fonts a little bit, because this is something that's very mysterious to me. I don't know how you can always pick the right font, because there's so many. And every time I've tried to help a designer, give them just an idea of something that I kind of like, I'm completely overwhelmed. Talk to us about that. How do you decide, and what's your process?
It can be overwhelming. I just browse through until I see one that I like and I try it. I try not to send authors too many font choices because I do think that can be overwhelming, because a lot of them, they can't even tell what's the difference. So I usually pick the ones that I like the best and kind of go from there. But yeah, I agree. There's so many fonts out there. I can see how it can be overwhelming. I think I have kind of the ones that I know I like, and some of them are easy to pick. And then sometimes, I'll be on the computer all day looking at fonts. It's like picking pictures, like going through stock photos can take, hours and hours. It's like falling down a rabbit hole. Like, which ones do you like more?
Yeah. Even as an author, I think we've all done that, where we, get stuck for half a day goes by, and it's like, oh, I haven't even found one photo.
Yes.
but I have 80 of them in the save folder or whatever. All right. Well, unless Karen, there was anything else you were curious about, we're going to jump to our fun extra question portion of the podcast.
Okay.
And these don't have anything to do with books or design. That we just like it's just a fun thing. So what is one food that will never get past your lips?
So I am not a fan of raw fish. I have discovered that I like sushi currently, but it has to be cooked. Just the thought of raw fish, I just cannot do.
There's probably a lot of good fish for you are too.
Oh my gosh, we should see. We just keep our freezer stocked of halibut and salmon. It's like all we eat. And I'm so ready for the weather to be a little bit better and we can go out and go fishing. That's what we do all summer is we have a boat and we're just fishing all summer.
That sounds like so much fun.
It does sound fun.
Oh.
Do your kids like that too?
No.
Oh,
of course not. Yeah.
My son loves to river fish. So if you take him to the river, he loves it. But the kids don't love the boat. I don't think they like being confined all day. My daughter is kind of at that age where she'd rather be home doing whatever she wants to do. She doesn't like fishing. She doesn't want to touch them. She doesn't want to reel them in. My son would enjoy the boat more if he could physically reel in the big fish, but he's 9, so he can't. So he gets very frustrated. He wants to reel in the big fish. And so it can be kind of a challenge for him. But no, now they're old enough, they can just stay home and we can go fishing.
That sounds nice too.
Yeah.
Got a date day.
Yeah.
All right. Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Oh my gosh. That's a hard one. I think her name's Jayma Mays from Glee. I've had so many people tell me that I look like her.
Oh, sure.
Which I don't see it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess her if we kind of look alike.
All right. What superpower would you pick given the opportunity?
Oh, I would definitely multiply myself. If I could have multiple of me, that would be amazing. One of me to do the dishes, one of me to take care of the kids, one of me to go work out, one of me to do my job.
And then at the end of the day, they just merge.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that would be the greatest superpower.
Yeah, I think a lot of women can relate to that one for sure. What's your biggest guilty pleasure?
Oh, chocolate. Definitely chocolate, which I'm avoiding right now because I'm trying to be real healthy and it's hard.
I get it. What is the worst job you've ever had?
I thought about that question and I can't think of the worst job. I mean, I've really enjoyed all of the jobs that I've had. I would say I was a dishwasher at my parents' restaurant when I was a teenager. That might probably be the worst because who likes to do dirty dishes? Nobody. So that's probably my worst job.
If you could instantly become an expert at something, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, that was another hard one. Maybe if I could be like an expert hiker. I'm not the best hiker. I get very winded and tired and, I hate myself halfway up a mountain. But if I could be an expert at that would be great because there's so many mountains here I want to climb, but I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. What's your favorite smell?
Ooh, pumpkin spice. I love a good pumpkin spice candle.
Me too. What is the most terrifying thing you've ever done?
So I couldn't think of something terrifying that I've done, but I've had a terrifying experience, if that counts. We actually, when we moved from California back to Kodiak, Alaska, we had to drive through Canada and we had to tow our trailer and we hit a bear in Canada with no cell service. And it went under our trailer and broke our axle and blew out our tires. And we were 9 miles from our campsite. And it was very, very traumatic. And my husband wanted to stop and look for the bear. And I'm thinking, well, this bear could eat you. I wouldn't let him. We drove a mile and then realized that, we pretty much had to drag our trailer to our campsite 9 miles. It was the most terrifying experience with 2 small children.
Oh my God.
It was awful. It was so awful. And everybody in Canada was so amazing. And we got a tow bed. The tow truck came and towed our trailer 2 hours to Whitehorse, and they had it fixed in 7 hours. They were amazing. But they all kept telling us, good thing you hit a bear and not a moose, because you'd all be dead. And I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make me feel any better.
That's like something out of a movie.
It was insane.
Like an adventure movie.
Now anytime something goes wrong, I remind my husband, at least we didn't hit a bear again in Canada with no cell service, because I don't think it could get worse than that.
Okay, I might have to put that in a book. That's pretty good. That's a good one.
We still had to drive, So after that, I was like in the passenger seat, eyes wide open, looking for animals left and right. Like, are we going to hit something? The next day, this mama moose and a baby popped out in the road. I'm like, slow down,
Wow.
Yeah, you just have to be careful driving through Canada. It's crazy.
It is the last frontier, right?
It is.
Okay. What's one thing you're really bad at?
Math. It's not my strong suit. Never been good at math.
If you could live your life over again, would you want to?
No. I'm very happy. I'm very blessed. I'm very happy with where I'm at. I feel blessed to be able to work from home and be there for my children. I got to spend every day with them. I'm very happy in my marriage. I love where we live. Yeah, I don't think I would change anything.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of all of the authors that you have helped over the years, thank you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your talent, and you're so easy to work with and kind to us, and we appreciate that.
And I double that.
Well, thank you. I would not have a job without all of you. So I am very appreciative, and keep writing those stories. Keep writing.
All right, good. All right. Thank you very much for spending time with us.
Take care, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Of
Bye.
course. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Book, brought to you by authors Tess Thompson and Karen McQuestion. They hope you found it entertaining and informative. If you loved it, tell your friends. And if you have a moment, they'd love for you to post a star rating or review. This has been Behind the Book.